Our next guest was a college student and civil rights activist back in 1965. She drove from Cincinnati, Ohio to Selma, Alabama with 3 of her friends to take part in the historic marches there. Marie Boyd joins us from our Charlottetown PEI studio today to share her memories of marching in Selma. Thanks so much for joining us. First off, did you ever imagine that 50 years later you'd still be talking about what happened there?
No, I didn't, Hannah. It's amazing. We weren't sure how much impact that march would have, but we certainly couldn't think ahead for 50 years. We hoped that it would make key changes, and that was about all we could hope for.
Now take us back to that day. What was on your mind? What do you remember most?
Well, the beginning of the march, which was March 21st, we were well prepared and warned to protect ourselves and told how to fall if somebody attacked us. So it was very much, we have to get started, we have to get acquainted with this, and we have to know that there are people out there who might be so angry that they would attack you. Other than that, we were thinking of the long road of 54 or 55 miles from Selma to Montgomery.
So those are the 2 main things in your mind, the long march as well as protect yourself.
Yes, that's right.
You're very young at the time. Did you realize the significance of the march then?
Oh, I definitely did. I mean, I wasn't that young. I was already graduated from university, and I had been exposed to the civil rights movement and had actually heard Martin Luther King speak in Cincinnati before that march, and was well aware because I was living in a black neighborhood of Cincinnati at the time of the march. So I was well aware of all the problems, and I was well aware of the violence. So I certainly knew the meaning of the march. I knew the meaning of solidarity because all around me were people who were suffering from racial discrimination, and when you went out on the street, you heard it all over the place.
Can you remember that moment where you decided, I'm going to Selma? What inspired you?
Well, I was on the staff of the Black YWCA in the West End of Cincinnati, and as soon as I heard that some people were going, I said, well, I would really like to go too, and it was as simple as that. I felt very moved by the cause and thought it would be a wonderful thing to participate and just make my statement by entering the march.
Do you remember what moved you about the cause at that time?
Well, Martin Luther King himself was the prime motivator. It was really something. I mean, his stirring speeches, the I Have a Dream speech in Washington in 1963, and then all the follow-up action. And also you could see the way that he was perceived by the black people as a liberator for them. And actually, when I heard him first in Cincinnati, I could hear the moans and groans of the black people in that hall, because it was as if they were unloading decades of oppression, of exploitation, of misery of all kinds, of having to endure being not only second-class citizens, but just having very little because of the color of their skin. So Martin Luther King was a liberator for them, and to see the effect that man had on his people and how he raised their hopes, that was enough in itself to make anybody want to march to Selma, from Selma to Montgomery.
Right. What do you think the legacy of Selma is for today's youth? We're 50 years later.
Well, it's interesting because I'm surprised at how interested people still are in Selma, and actually an 11-year-old girl couldn't believe that there was somebody in Charlottetown who had really been there. So schools, you know, students are studying this, people are doing term papers, that people are still excited. And that was the thing, that it would be a shining light in the consciousness of the people. And the fact that that light is still lit and shining is very hopeful.